To work in startups, there are some ideas you must believe in, like capitalism, Naval Ravikant, and of course, a bias for action, which is what we will talk about today. Bias for action is the idea that the speed of execution is of utmost importance in any business. It's been lionized by startup founders, startup employees. It's even in my LinkedIn bio. No, don't go to read my bio now. First you watch this video, okay? But from what I've seen in India, not all is well for bias for action. The most common interpretation of bias for action is, "Itna kya soch raha hai bhai, jaldi karna." The idea has been used to devalue thinking and overvalue action. See, thinking is a prerequisite for acting. If you don't think properly, you will not act properly. Bias for action is not an excuse to throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. That is called marketing. To understand the risks of bias for action, let's just listen to one of the champions of the idea, Amazon. And who better to hear it from than the CEO of the company, Andy Jassy? Because, Jassy koi nahi.
Is there a tension between having the highest standards and having a bias for action? Yes, there can be a tension. Because the reality is, in moving fast, you can't launch a subpar customer experience. By the way, launching a subpar customer experience also breaks the customer obsession leadership principle.
3 points to make here. Firstly, even Amazon acknowledges that the risk of bias for action is low quality work. If you've seen, they're very careful to preface it with words like calculated and thoughtful. Secondly, to protect themselves from the risks of bias for action, Amazon considers its other leadership principles as checks and balances in theory. Indian startups don't have checks and balances in theory also. And lastly, Amazon leans pretty heavily on its two-way door theory to justify bias for action.
The overwhelming majority of decisions that we make are two-way door decisions.
While two-way doors are decisions that you can reverse, that reversal has a cost to it. Generally, reversing a decision means abandoning somebody's work. When leadership repeatedly abandons projects that they have previously greenlit, they cause disillusionment and attrition. CEOs are usually not bothered by either, especially Indian CEOs, but in my experience, the loss of human capital is one of the main risks at a tech company. Recently, Shreyas Doshi and Lenny also had a discussion on the two-way door theory, and I'll leave a link in the comments. It's interesting listening. Our current idea of bias for action is often a net negative. But this video is not about abandoning bias for action. It is about salvaging it. For bias for action to work, you only need two things. Number one, see, if you want to act faster or if you want to do fast, and thinking is a prerequisite for doing, then you have to think faster. And one person can't magically think faster. The only way to think faster is to get good at brainstorming, to build the brainstorming muscle. In the early days of my career, I spent a lot of time with ad agency people. And I'll tell you something about agency people. They're very good at brainstorming. Their secret is usually a good mix of people. There's one senior person who's a facilitator. This person usually has authority and they use it to create some intellectual intimacy and to create an environment which is no holds barred, where everybody can contribute. Then you need a bunch of young people. They're not encumbered by experience. They are creative enough to have ideas and stupid enough to say them. And lastly, you need a couple of subject matter experts. People who will take an idea and then either bin it because it's not possible or say, maybe this can happen. Largely, the structure is very similar to the creator, preserver, destroyer framework of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And the second thing you need is an understanding of restraint. आपने कभी भिंडी बनाई है? Bhindi fry. The thing with bhindi fry is that the more you stir the bhindi, the more slimy and disgusting it gets. The best way to cook bhindi is to put it in hot oil and then forget about it for a few minutes. In the world of internet products, many features are like bhindi. If your feature delivers actual value to a customer, release it and don't dick around with it. Under this guise of bias for action, we do all kind of stupid shit. We'll put the button here and there, we'll make it yellow, we'll make it green, we'll make it animate. Forget all that. Muscle memory eats optimization for lunch, and you only build muscle memory if you don't move things around all the time. अच्छा quote है, t-shirt पे डालना चाहिए. Muscle memory eats up. नहीं, बहुत लंबा है. To summarize, neither is bias for action an excuse to devalue thinking, nor is it the license to repeatedly make bad decisions. If you want to be good at bias for action, you need to build an atmosphere that supports brainstorming. And lastly, कभी-कभी भिंडी बना लिया करो, कुछ सीख जाओगे.